right, if you have your Bibles, open up to Esther chapter 1. Esther chapter 1. So, what is the background here? What do you remember about the book of Esther and its place in history with Israel?
About the time some of them were living bondage,
Okay.
going back to Israel.
Okay, true. Yep. So we're getting closer to that end of the captivity.
At the time of Ezra.
Well, it's close. We're not quite to that point there, but it is very close to that. I think Ahasuerus is Xerxes, and the next king. Do you remember who the next king of the Medo-Persian Empire would be? It's going to be Artaxerxes. And then after that, we're going to see the other kingdom rise up, and Cyrus will come into power. But here we have, we're not too far from the end of the captivity. We do know that Xerxes, if you remember some of the movies that have been made, what's one of the big battles that we know about Xerxes doing? Alex is smiling. He knows what it is. Who did he fight? 300 of these.
Greece.
Huh?
Greece.
Yeah, he went over to Greece and fought the Spartans. And how well did he do in Greece? Not well. He did not do very well. In fact, at the in this chapter 1, if you read it, he disposes of his wife, Vashti, and then after he does that, he goes off to Greece to fight. He loses real bad, and then he comes back, and he's probably trying to make himself feel better. So I'm going to find a new queen. And he finds Esther because things didn't go so well for him there in Greece. But before he goes there, things are going very well for the Medo-Persian Empire.
And in the movie, he's like 8 feet tall.
Yeah, and he's like 8 feet tall. But things are going well. It opens up. We're talking about the size of his land that he's a king over, India to Ethiopia. There's 127 provinces. He's sitting in the citadel in Susa. I forgot to write down the other. There's actually 3 places the kings will often move around to. He just happens to be here at this time period, is why it's mentioned in Susa. He's in the 3rd year of his reign, and he gives a banquet. And what is a banquet again, Caleb?
Party.
It's a big party for all the princes, the attendants, army officers of Persia, Media, the nobles, and the princes of the provinces. And during this time, he displays his riches, all his glory, and he does it for 180 days, showing off everything he has. Is that a long time to show off everything you have for 180 days? And then when he's done with that, everyone in the citadel gets to be part of a 7-day feast. You drink from golden goblets. It even goes through talking about all the things they saw in great detail, the garden, the type of marble. Everyone had different styles of golden cups to drink out of. And he even made sure that everyone knew the law that you're under no compulsion to drink, but it's the royal wine. Drink as much as you want. So you can tell they're probably going to do it, as we'll see here in a little bit. But man, was he showing off, right? What would you call this? Verses 1 through 9 of everything that's going on. Even Vashti is having a banquet for the women there at the very end in the palace. What's going on? What do you call this from the king? What is he doing?
Seeking favor.
Okay, seeking favor. Okay, I perhaps, but I think he's being boastful. I think he's being very boastful. Now, why, there in verse 9, why is that queen having her own banquet for the women? I thought that was interesting. At first I thought, well, maybe women aren't allowed, because you know how Esther, she had to get permission to come before the king. So I thought that's why I did a little research. And not at all. Almost all the kings always had their queen sitting next to them at banquets, and they're always a part of it. So why is she not coming, and why is she having her own banquet? The theory is, and I ascribe it as, I think it's probably true, that this is the mother, we know this is probably the mother of Artaxerxes, the next king. She's probably pregnant at this time with him and doesn't want to be part of all these things, and she knows her husband, what kind of attitude he has. So I think she's staying away, doing her own thing at her palace, and doing some things for the ladies there. Now, that's just my opinion. I can't know that for sure.
He could have been planning on showing her off later anyway. He was showing everything else off.
Right, well, he will do that here in just a little bit, yeah. So, very boastful of him to do this. And then verses 10, 11, and 12. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine. When you see that phrase, merry with wine, have you seen that in the Bible before? Maybe you got some references. It's always talking about what? He's drunk. He's had too much. It's been 7 days, and he's been drinking a lot. And then he commands the seven eunuchs that he has that serve in his presence to go and bring, verse 11, Queen Vashti before the king with her royal crown in order to display her beauty to the people and the princes, for she was beautiful. Again, you open up commentaries. Some say that he was wanting her to come and he wanted to show off her nakedness to them. I don't think that's it. I think he just wanted to show that she was beautiful, clothed with the crown on, and just show her off like what?
Property.
Like one of his things, one of his things that he owns that's very beautiful. And if you ever do any kind of secular history study on Artaxerxes, I can't remember the queen's name from that time, like in secular history, but she was a very intelligent and very powerful woman. Because when her son takes power, she comes in and she's pretty much running the show quite a bit. And I think she probably is doing a lot of that here as well. She's powerful. But she doesn't want to be shown off, and so she refuses. How big of a deal is that? She just told the king no. Now, was she wrong to refuse? Okay, yeah, but think about it, like as far as morally, like if it wasn't a king-queen situation, do you think morally was she wrong? No. She knew probably this was going to happen. He's drunk. He wants to show her off in front of all his friends as like some sort of thing. And she said, no thanks. I don't want to be part of that. And so she said no. Of course, he gets real upset. So he says in verse 13 to the wise men. Now I think at verse 13, it's probably some time has passed. And he said to the wise men who understood the times, for it was the custom of the king so to speak before all who knew law and justice. So you got wise men, understood the time, who knew law and justice. I think these are people who have been around. They're not, I don't think they're astrologists or they're not looking at the stars. I think these are men who've been around. They know the law. There's a lot of laws on the books. He wants to know, what can I do about Queen Vashti? So these guys would know. And those who were close to him, he mentioned their names. There's again the 7 princes of Persia and Media, and who had access to the king's presence. And he asked them in verse 15, according to law, what is to be done with Queen Vashti? Because she did not obey the command of King Ahasuerus, delivered by the eunuchs. In the presence of the king and the princes, Memucan said, Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king, but also all princes and all the peoples who are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, causing them to look with contempt on their husbands, by saying, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought into his presence, but she did not come. This day the ladies of Persia and Media who have heard of the queen's conduct will speak the same way to all the king's princes, and there will be plenty of contempt and anger. So, what is he saying is happening in all the kingdom, or will happen because of this? Rebellion by the wise. And man, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Do you think he is right? I mean, this is the queen and king. If she gets away with this, that could be an argument that they could get away with it too. So maybe, yeah, there could be an argument there for this. So, if it pleases the king, verse 19, let the royal edict be issued by him, and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, so that it cannot be repealed, that Vashti may no longer come into the presence of King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is more worthy than she. Proper punishment? Or do you think that might be over the top? I was looking at this and thinking about this, that, okay, yeah, she denied the king, but man, to completely remove her from her queenship and not kill her, why didn't they kill her? Well, probably because she's pregnant with the heir, but they really wanted her removed. I think that's because this is that same queen who will be with Artaxerxes. It's her too. And that she is that powerful mother who will come onto the world stage and kind of help run things there in the Medo-Persian Empire along with Artaxerxes. And so they don't like how much influence she has over the king. And how easy is this king influenced?
Pretty easy.
Why do you say that?
He changed his mind a couple of times.
All throughout Esther. Yeah, I mean, remember when Haman wanted to have all the Jews killed? How hard was it for him to convince the king? Here's my signet ring. Go do whatever you want. And then later on, Esther comes along, and she sways him back over to the other side. And here you got this. It's just, he's easily swayed, and he's very boastful. He's very arrogant, and he drinks a lot and makes foolish decisions and comments. And what happens when you are a very prideful person and somebody pokes your pride? You get angry. Poison comes out, and you go over the top, I think, with what you do. And we see that happening here where Queen Vashti did that to him, and he was angry, so he jumped on this, and it pleased him, and he sent out that letter that everyone's to be master of their own house, make sure their women stay in line. And of course, Vashti is put out, and we don't see her come back in the letter, but we know if this is Xerxes, she will, because she will give birth to Artaxerxes, and she will come back onto the scene. But you got his boastfulness there in the first 9 verses, his drunkenness there in verses 10, 11, and 12, his vindictiveness, you could say, there at the very end, 13 to 22. You know, Proverbs 12, 16, a fool shows his annoyance at once, but a prudent man overlooks an insult. He could not do that. And these 7 wise men advised him to depose Vashti and replace her with another queen. They promised that this sort of act would put fear in the hearts of the women in the empire and generate more respect for the husbands. And he jumps right on that because of the ego problem, Jim.
What do you think a more appropriate punishment? You had to punish her somehow.
Well, yeah.
Publicly rejected him. So if he didn't kill her, I mean, apparently not Henry VIII. So he didn't put her to death.
So he's going to depose her. I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating here on these things, but ban her for a period of time, or make her give penance in some way. But when you have the woman who is, chances are, pregnant with the heir, and if I am right who this is, then this is going to be someone who has a lot of influence. And that could be why the wise men try to get rid of her the way they do. Just like, remember when Daniel had the ear of Nebuchadnezzar? What did the wise men want to do with Daniel? Whatever they could to get rid of him, because they were jealous of him. And I see maybe the same thing's happening here, but that's just my speculation on that. But this guy's motivated by anger, revenge. He's wanting to heal his wounded pride, and so he agrees with this advice and has her deposed. And he didn't immediately replace her. Instead, as we were talking about earlier, he goes off to invade Greece. He beats pretty humiliating defeat there, returns, and he probably seeks solace in trying to find a new queen to make him feel better. I think I do have her name here. Did I write it in here? I didn't. No, but I do talk about Artaxerxes. He'll rule in 464 to 425. And it's likely at that point Esther has lost favor and has gone away, probably back to Israel at that point. But he comes in, probably was born the year of the banquet, or she was pregnant during the year of that banquet. and possibly that Vashti was pregnant with him. But he rules during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. But in any case, why is chapter 1, why does it open up like this, where you have this king, we see his boastfulness, he gets drunk, makes a bad decision, and then his vindictiveness. When stories open, it opens up to set a tone. What kind of tone is being set? A couple of things. Some are obvious. There needs to be a new queen, number 1. What else? We've already mentioned it once.
Character of the king.
Character of the king.
Easily swayed and
Yeah, and
influenced, yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
But yeah, and we'll see that more of that. Seems like everyone who has his ear, they can make him do whatever they want. And he was extremely successful in his campaigns in spreading the influence of his power until he removed Vashti. And now that goes away. And things really start to go poorly for him until Artaxerxes comes in, who his mother comes back. And then they become a little bit more powerful, again, for a few years until he dies. And so this is setting the stage for what's going to happen in the letter of Esther. Now, what kind of person is Esther going to be? I know don't get me wrong. She is a great character, but what kind of person is she? When we really look at some of the decisions she makes, some of the things she says, does she know what she's doing? What do you remember?
She's been guided
By her uncle,
guide.
right? But she's scared. I mean, she's young. She's in a difficult position.
Timid.
Very timid. But when it comes down to it, do you remember what she asked the king to do when she finally worked up the nerve to tell him what's actually going on here?
Spare the Jews.
Okay, let them fight. But then there's something else she asks. How long do they get to fight? Because it was supposed to be for one day, right? She asked them to have an extra day to kill off all those who would harm them. Interesting to think about, why did she ask that? And is that from God, or was that from Esther? I want us to look at the book and see what's going on here, and look at the characters and see if you can see the king's attitude as we work through this. Look at Esther, the way she grows up and is inserted into these things. Mordecai as well, and the wise men, when they do come up every once in a while, and of course Haman as well. And because in this whole letter, we see a lot about people's attitudes in this. Everyone's pretty extreme, except for a few, in their emotions and how they react to things, and they're not staying calm and thinking things through, like you see people like Mordecai does and others. What else is interesting about the book of Esther?
I think that some of the details are bizarre.
Like what?
Well, like in this first chapter, it gives the names of the 7 eunuchs,
Oh, yeah.
and then gives the names of the 7 princes. And I think that's odd. Like, usually when the names are given, it's like there's a reason why they're given the names. You know, sometimes we breeze over the genealogies and things of the Old Testament, thinking, well, that's not important. But then the more you look at it, the more you learn about the Bible, the more those genealogies seem important. But why did he need to name the eunuchs?
Well, I think he does it the same reason why, for those online, Alex was asking, the details. Why name these eunuchs, the 7 princes and the 7 eunuchs? I think it's the same reason why Luke does it. He gives us a reference to history. Almost every scholar nowadays says this is Xerxes. The timeline fits. From India to Ethiopia on his land, that fits. The names that they have given for the eunuchs and the princes. I mean, even though some of the way the Hebrews write names and they do, there's some differences, but they fit. Some of those fit in there with who Xerxes was and what happened, and with Vashti as well. So all that fits in. So I think it is Vashti is that queen, and this is the mother of Artaxerxes, and I think this is Xerxes as well that we're looking at here. And I think that's why he gives those details, so that we can go back and look at
And
those
the
things.
details of, like, the courtyard with the linens hanging and how they were on the silver rings
Oh, in the marble, and in all the different little
Yeah.
things. And I think that shows just how boastful, but also rich he was. He was
Yeah.
so powerful.
I just feel like that kind of detail is very unusual in the Bible.
That is
You
true.
know, it talks about what was in the mosaics on the floor. And
Everyone's, yeah, even the golden goblets and everyone's, how did it word it? Like everyone had a different style golden goblet that they were drinking from. It's just all the little things, he said. Yeah, drinks were served in golden vessels of various kinds, verse 7. And they even giving you some ideas on the law. And the king made sure everyone knew you're under no compulsion to drink, he says there toward the end.
Well, two things. One, when I started seeing the rings and the linen and whatnot, I said, oh, I wonder if those were from the tabernacle. But a couple things for
No.
the eunuchs and the advisors were all very high ranking. I mean, these weren't just footmen who stood outside the door. The eunuchs, again, even in the New Testament, eunuchs were highly placed court officials, like the Ethiopian.
Well, these particular eunuchs were used just to serve Vashti for the king. The king would use for his queen.
Right, but they had to be high ranking.
Oh, yeah.
Because, well, they served the queen, but two, and they were eunuchs for very obvious reasons. None of which were good for any of us in our current culture, but still, they were high ranking, as were the advisors.
Right,
So-
which are the princes of the provinces. These are like a governor, high officials. These are nobodies. They are smart, intelligent guys, and they've been around. They know the law, but I think they also use it to their advantage in swaying the king what they want. And I believe they wanted to get rid of Vashti.
They're politicians, of course they
Yeah. What else? What else is interesting about the book? There's one thing I'm looking for. See if anybody remembers. God is never mentioned in the book of Esther. Why is that?
are. He's implied.
Yeah, he is implied, but his name's never used.
How do you know you weren't put here for this particular purpose?
Yeah, why not say God's name?
And I don't know why they didn't.
There's a lot of similarities in the story of Joseph in this letter, talking about providence. And over in the story of Joseph, you see God and him acting and him doing things in the background quite a bit and ensuring where he goes. In Esther, you don't see the name of God, but you know God is working, but we don't see it. I think it's another stepping stone in learning and understanding God working behind the scenes to bring about his will. Just like Mordecai said, that one verse. And who had that verse? Jonah, did you have that verse? Was that you, Jody, had that verse? And you don't know it even. How's it go, Jody? And who knows if God or if you were not put in this position for such a time as this? For such a time as this. Who put her there? He's implying God. That's providence. But she is timid because, of course, she is a young girl in a very difficult situation.
Romans tells us she was with
Yep. What?
She would have been part of the government as the queen.
Oh.
God would have put her in this.
That's right. But it's interesting that God's name's not mentioned. I think that's on purpose, so we can learn more about the providence of God. Okay, so Esther chapter 2, Pew Packers, for next week, and we'll continue our study on that. Any other comments or anything else you think is interesting about the book of Esther? It's not very long. Read through it, take some notes, write down your questions, and we'll continue. Oh,
You know,
Alex.
in chapter 2, they talk about the 12 months of beautification, you know. That's pretty crazy. You know, she would not go to him before they had essentially worked on her for 12 months. She's got to bathe in this oil for 6 months, and then this oil and these spices and this makeup and this.
Oh, it's
That is something
It's crazy. It's a lot like with Daniel and his friends. But how long did Daniel and his friends have to go through their preparations? It was a couple of years, right? It was not just 12 months, but a while.
Wasn't that when they were eating vegetables only and had to make sure they didn't look sickly?
Yes, yeah. They had to look good. They had to be pleasing the eye. They don't want any ugly people around the king.